Back nice, straight, boobs out.
If I don't get it on this one, you can start. Yeah?
You have as many times as you need.
Sorry, I can't. There we go.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 2. I'm Cass, and this is
Vanessa.
We're so excited you could be here. Join us on our journey. Today, we are talking about anxiety. So we're just going to do a complete deep dive into all things anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm.
I associate life with anxiety. Probably isn't the best thing to do. But we're just going to kind of go over what we've done that has worked for us, that hasn't worked for us, what we're currently doing to help us with kind of managing and coping with anxiety, because I don't believe that anxiety is cured, which I think some self-help books go into curing anxiety. I don't believe that. So yeah, if Cass wants to share her story, I'll let her take the lead.
Sure. So I've had anxiety from a young age. When I was younger, I obviously didn't have a label for it or recognize it. But it really started once I left university. And I started into my teaching career. And so anxiety was something that was always there with me. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and often people who are perfectionists have anxiety just because they need things to look a certain way and be a certain way. And you have this voice in the back of your head that everything has to be just so, or, you're going to get judged, or, you might get that criticism, which criticism isn't always a bad thing. Constructive
depends on who it's coming from usually.
Yeah. Unless it's your husband. No.
If you know that it's coming in a good, heartfelt way.
Yeah.
But if you know if somebody's just being a dick about it.
Yeah.
But anyways.
And I can remember I was my first year out of university, and the first year teaching is hard on everybody. And so I just felt overwhelmed, and then report card time would come and I would sit with these report card comments and overanalyze them. And it just became this cycle where I would go home at the end of the day and I would just be stressing. So I wouldn't leave that anxiety from my day behind. And it would impact my relationships, and it would impact my husband's and I relationship and my relationships with other people, because it's so exhausting to try to be perfect outwardly. You're expending so much energy on your worries and on how people are going to perceive you that you just come home and you're depleted and you just don't have anything left over. So that joy is kind of taken out, when I'm in the summertime, I don't have those extra stressors. And so I feel like that joy comes back to me. And then because I don't have this need to be perfect, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. And so this year was just kind of a culmination of a lot of things for me where my anxiety peaked. So we had just moved back from BC a couple years ago, and I jumped back into full-time teaching, and it just seems like, there's a lot of things going on in education, higher class sizes, lack of funding, new curriculum. So all of those things combined just kind of caused a buildup of stress. But I knew that I wasn't handling my anxiety like I typically would.
Yeah.
So in the past, I could kind of overcome it, or I would step through it, I would move forward. But this year it was a low spot and I could no longer overcome it. So it was just consuming me. So I would go home at the end of the day and I would be just a mess. And so I started counseling earlier this year, and I had a supportive admin, and they said, you know what, go in once a month and just see what you can do. And, I went the route of the doctors, and I went in and I said to them, I know myself and I know my body, and something's not going on. There's some deeper root cause for my anxiety. It should not be, showing up to this extent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So previously I felt like I could cope with it, but then sometimes in life it just becomes too much. Your cortisol gets really high.
Mm-hmm.
You become overwhelmed and you kind of burn out. And so I was at that burnout stage. And so as a teacher, I always want to discover the why. Why am I feeling burnt out? Why am I unable to do the things that I used to do? Why do I have brain fog? And so I wanted to do a deep dive into the underlying reasons for my anxiety. And so going to the doctors here, I wasn't well received. I've never had health issues. I've been very lucky and blessed in my life. And so going into them, it was like they just told me, well, just take a pill. And I said, you know, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take an anti-anxiety or antidepressant pill. But I said, there's something else going on, something hormonal, something else in my body that's not right, because I'm not able to deal with the stressors that I used to be able to deal with. It took me, I think, 4 trips to the doctors, 6 months of seeing a counselor before I decided, like, I cannot teach anymore. And so I decided that I didn't decide, my body decided for me that I had to go off on a leave. I was showing up emotional, I was showing up depleted, I was showing up just like
you weren't happy.
I was so unhappy, so depressed, like all of those symptoms were showing up for me. And these were symptoms of an underlying cause. And so when I dug a little deeper, I was able to find out that I do have endometrial hyperplasia, and there's other things going on like cysts. And we're still working out if there's anything else, and hopefully it's nothing more nefarious than that, but we are still in the process of figuring that out. But as anybody who's gone through this healthcare system knows, it is a huge process.
And they definitely try to associate almost every feeling that you were having, the fatigue, the stress, all that stuff, relating it to, you're just depressed. Here, just take an antidepressant.
Push a pill, push a pill. And there's nothing wrong. And we want to be very clear on that.
No, I take antidepressants.
With taking antidepressants, or if you need that, you need that. But it also goes to show that they're not looking at actually curing the body. They're just looking at a quick fix. Yeah. And so I could take those for the rest of my life and keep upping the dose, or I could really dig deeper into the root cause. And so I started seeing a lot of like holistic practitioners. I started going the more natural route. I'm working with a team out of Edmonton called True Balance. So all of these things, and I'm taking lots of supplements and eating better and, trying to move my body more, and all of those things that sometimes when you're confined to that stressful 9 to 5, that we don't always do for ourselves, right? I feel like as women, we always care for everybody else. And especially as a mom, right? You can relate to that. And then as a teacher as well, you're always caring for other people's children or putting other people's needs ahead of your own. And so that's been years of me doing that, of just pushing through. But when you don't listen to those signals in your body is going to tell you, right? And so that severe anxiety and that depression cropped up because of my underlying health needs. And I think that was something that you wanted to speak to too, as well. Severe anemia. Right. And so we both struggle with anemia. And I noticed I went and got an infusion. And after I had that happen, I felt a lot better. And I felt more like myself, more energy, etc. But I'm still working on healing the hormonal aspect. And I'm still working on figuring out answers and seeing if possibly I need to get a hysterectomy or which route to go to eliminate the cause, which is the endometrial issues.
Yeah. And that definitely associates with anxiety. For me, mine is definitely health as well, but it's a lot of just the mental aspect of it. I'm always in my own head, which is exhausting. If anybody else has been in those situations where you're constantly thinking of the worst case scenario, which causes you to be overstimulated, causing anxiety, and then it takes a toll on your body. So you get the physical, you get the mental exhaustion. I did try for 2 years after I quit antidepressants the first time, doing the whole natural way, therapy, meditation, yoga. But it was hard for me. I was still really struggling. So I chose to start taking antidepressants after 2 years of trying. So I'm still currently on antidepressants. I don't have an idea of if I'm going to stop taking them. I would love to, but I know going off of them is not the funnest. So that, again, overthinking that and coming off of that. But I have an amazing therapist here in Grand Prairie now, and still doing the meditation, grounding, the breath work. My therapist just started, this is new to me, we just started doing art therapy. So it's the accelerated resolution therapy, which is eye movement. And you don't talk about your traumas, but you think of a time that you really struggled with, and then you kind of replace it with a positive memory as she's waving her hand in your face, which for me, I overthinking, she's like getting too close. But so she waves the hand, the eyes follow the hand, and then you're replacing those thoughts with positive thoughts, and you don't talk during it. So it's nice not to relive those all the time, because going to therapy so many times and being to so many different therapists, it starts to get tiring, constantly sharing your stories and your traumas, to the point that going to this new one, it's like, blah, 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 like you just throw it all out there. Okay, this is my trauma, and then let's deal with it.
Yeah.
So she's really good. I really enjoy her, but I definitely, the meditation and the grounding is huge. The breath work, dealing with that and dealing with your thoughts and trying to overcome the thought process, rewiring your brain, I guess, takes a lot of work, but it takes time and it's a lot, but it's worth it.
I like the way Vanessa brought up trauma. So we're essentially pre-programmed from a very young age. So from birth, you're taking in all these ideas and these thoughts, and they're forming your subconscious, your subconscious being, and then you're taking that forward. So sometimes those programs are old; they're from when we were 2 or 3 or 4 years old. And anxiety is actually useful. And we look at it as the opposite
that way. Yeah.
So we are programmed, if anything is going to threaten us. So you think about a caveman and, way back in the day. And if there was,
flight and fight.
A lion or a cougar came to attack them, and that anxiety serves a purpose. And so in today's day and age, as we all know, we don't have those unless you're out hunting, like my brothers or somebody
Yeah.
But we don't have those same type of threats usually.
Mhm.
So we're sitting in an environment where our brain is still hardwired to step into fight or flight, and your cortisol is going to rise, and your body is either going to respond by freezing, or it's going to respond by flight. So you're either going to get out of that situation, you're going to avoid the situation, you're going to procrastinate. So all of those things have shown up in both of our lives. The avoidance is a big one. And so in those situations, you're actually supposed to, and this is hard, especially when you're dealing with depression and anxiety, but you are supposed to challenge those thoughts. And so for me, being a teacher, I taught a lot of mindfulness, and I know you've worked a lot with mindfulness in your yoga and meditation practices too. But the whole idea is that you're learning those skills so that when you're in the thick of anxiety, you can challenge those thoughts. So that is something that I think is huge, and that's something that's really helped me. Is you're kind of running on the program of two things. So you're running on the images that are in your head and the thoughts that you think. And so when you're constantly in a stressed, high cortisol state, you're usually thinking about negativity, right? I don't know about you, but that's me.
Yeah, I definitely associate. But I don't. With my learning, I guess, I don't challenge my thoughts because it causes too many thoughts for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I just learn how to sit with them and know that they're okay. They're there. They're fine.
Yeah.
It's like I heard in one of my readings or learnings that it's like somebody else is sitting in your brain. So it's like a drunk person coming into your house and they're just talking smack, and they're filling you with all these like conspiracy theories, and they're filling you with all these fears. And are you going to let them stay in your house, or are you going to be like, okay, it's time for you to leave? Well, it's like somebody coming into your brain and sitting there and filling you with all these thoughts, but you're not kicking them out. You're just sitting there with them and you're like, all right, this is fine. So you kind of just kick them out and you just sit with it. It's nothing. It's riding the wave without fighting it.
Yeah. So I do know, like, there's depending on who you are and your
What
personality.
works for you.
So that idea of pausing though. So pausing
Mhm.
and acknowledging that these thoughts might just be noise. So some thoughts are there to serve a purpose and you can problem solve on those thoughts, right? So that's where they come in,
I see what you
right?
mean. Yeah.
So you're going to pause and you're going to think, is this just noise? Am I just, ruminating on all the negative things that could happen? Or can I focus in on the one problem that I can actually do something about or that's in my control? Does that make sense? And then once you've paused, then you can choose a course of action, like Vanessa said. So you can either choose to accept it, which is huge. I think you have to accept that they're there to serve a purpose. But then you can choose to counteract that thought. Or like you said, you can choose to...
Yeah, I just try not to think about it.
Do you?
I do.
That doesn't work for me, but...
I do because I go so deep into thought that it's like one thought turns into another thought, turns into another thought.
I get that.
So if I'm like trying to fix that thought, then it's just turning into so many thinking.
It's going...
It's like, So I have so many little things going off. And so and a lot of my thoughts aren't necessary anyways.
So that's the noise, right?
So I learned that a lot of my thoughts are predictions, trying to predict the outcome of stuff. So the what ifs.
Control it. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I have to just realize that it's just thoughts and not go into it and to just kind of, step back and be like, okay, that's me thinking about all the what ifs, and that's not actually true because I don't know what's going to happen. It never is as bad as you make it out to be. So I have to pull myself in.
And that's a safety mechanism, right? So we're going through all of these scenarios so that we're feeling like we can control our reaction because we're aware that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So it's then in our mind, it's like, oh, this is in my control. When in reality, like you can change the images and you can challenge those images and you can challenge those thoughts. So you have to accept that it's there to serve a purpose, but then you can also change those thoughts. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, Marissa Peer. So I've trained in RTT therapy. So that is essentially a mix of NLP and it's also hypnosis. And so it's this really beautiful combination. And she talks about how like you can train your mind. We are set up pre-programs, but those programs sometimes have a virus, hence our anxiety, hence our depression, right? And you can reprogram those by changing the thoughts that you think and by changing the images that you see on a daily basis. But it's hard. It's hard to do that. And both my counselor, and I'm sure your counselor said the same thing, where you actually have to put yourself into those situations. And, in small doses, you don't have to jump into the fire.
Therapy?
Kind of like exposure therapy, so that you can practice that shift in your thoughts. And one thing I loved that I don't know that we talked about was having a song in your head. So my song is I Am Super.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, my song is I Am Superwoman by Alicia Keys.
Oh, can you sing it for us?
No, maybe later. I'll save that for later.
A private concert?
Yeah, so you have a thought or a song that you like that makes you feel positive, that makes you feel joyful, and it can cut through the noise. And I can think about
I see.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yeah, I've never heard that though.
Yeah, and then so when you're having those anxiety moments, and this is hard, this is like what you were talking about where it spirals into more thoughts. When you're trying to go, I am calm, I am well.
I do that out loud and then I look like I'm probably crazy.
Yeah, and so those affirmations are really powerful too, and that's changing the thoughts that you think or counteracting them. But some people are a little more, a little more edgy, and they just want to call out the thoughts and do the opposite of it. So if there's anxiety showing up, you can say, oh, thanks, you little asshole, for showing up.
I do that too.
Do you do that?
I'm like, hey, Bertha, it's time to go home.
Like
this, you need to leave. Yeah. Like, this is enough. I don't want to listen to you. You're talking shit.
Yeah.
Leave my house, my brain.
Yeah, and that's, sorry, I probably didn't explain it earlier, but that's what I meant by kind of like challenging your anxiety.
Gotcha.
Bringing out the Bertha card.
Yeah, old Bertha. I have a few names, a few different women that show up talking shit.
Yeah, I'm going to call mine something great, Gertrude or something.
That's a good one. Then we're going to have people on here that are listening that are names are Bertha.
Sorry, if you're Bertha or
Gertrude, we still love you. It doesn't mean that you're like them.
No, you're not a Karen. No. I can think of a situation I just took the kids to Edmonton. And so my anxiety comes in huge when I'm driving in a place that I don't know. And I've driven all over. I've driven through Vancouver, I've driven through Edmonton, but it's not a pretty sight. And so this last time we were driving through, I got into traffic and I had my son there and he's navigating. And this is my oldest, Hunter, and he's just ready for it. He just knows mom's going to lose her shit.
He's prepared.
He's mentally prepared and he's so calm anyways. He's great with it. But I'm going, which direction? Where do I go? And in my head, my thoughts are spiraling from like, we're just going to go from A to Z. And if I get lost, I can like rationally just, reroute and we'll be fine.
All over.
But in my head, we're all going to die in a fiery crash. I'm going to get in an accident and then I'm going to have to go deal with like all of the paperwork and the financial ruin of my family and all of those things.
That's
right?
a lot.
It's a lot. And so it's exhausting when you have those thoughts running in the background as you're trying to navigate, right? And so what I should do or should be doing, and you don't always do this in the moment, is challenge Gertrude or Bertha and put her in her place, right? Because those thoughts are there to keep you safe. They're serving a purpose, but that was just noise. My, the actual purpose of it was for me to problem solve. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Definitely. It's almost like the intrusive thoughts, but that's a whole other,
conversation.
Right? Yeah. Going into the worst case scenarios. It's the what ifs, the catastrophizing. It's a lot. There's a lot. We could probably have a million episodes just on anxiety, but, and we probably will. But I think this was just a good episode just to like kind of give you an opening on what it is that we deal with and what we have done to kind of help, right?
Yeah.
All those books and those self-help and that.
Yeah. So a lot of the things like RTT was huge for me. Counseling was huge for me because as a woman, I like to talk things out. Having good friends, right? Somebody you can just fall apart with. I think that's really important. That community.
Social.
Yeah.
That community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Building that community.
Did you just say that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. But you had a great idea.
My brain was like, I'm thinking of things and I'm not. Okay. Yep.
And I think that all of those things are really important, but we don't always, have that sense of community. So I think just seeking it out. There's Hay House. If you guys are familiar with Hay House, has a lot of really good, powerful meditations and affirmations. Mind Valley is another really great platform where you can go on and you can find coaches and you can find meditations. So those are things that I've used in my own life. And then just like onslaught of self-help books that you can go and buy.
I listen to a lot of just Spotify, our podcast of meditations. Mornings are always the hardest for me. That's when I'm the highest cortisol and my anxiety is the highest. So usually when I wake up, I have to ground right away. So I'll just throw on like some random one that it like resonates with me that day. And then I do that meditation, or sometimes I just don't feel like listening to anything and I just sit and do my own meditation. So there's so many different routes that people can take. Yeah. And I hope that we have shared something that can resonate with you and help you along the way as well. And I hope that you guys stay tuned, and we are so grateful for you to be part of this journey, and we are excited for the future.
Yeah.